Hello friends, this is Worm. No, the other kind. And today I wanted to talk about supers in the Crucible, and not so much supers, but one-off supers versus roaming supers. Right, and the reason I wanted to talk about this today was because I was playing Iron Banner, of course, last week, as well as Mayhem a lot, and just kind of goofing around in Mayhem. And I would say like a good 85% of the supers that people use are one-off supers. One-off supers include things that you activate one time, one quick little activation, and they're done, right? They are the non-roaming supers. Things like Thunder Crash, like Nova Bomb, Well of Radiance, the Bubble, Silence and Squall, stuff like that are one-off supers. And so I figured we'd talk today about why they're so popular and maybe what Bungie could potentially do to shift the meta a little bit so that people are more encouraged to use these roaming supers as opposed to the one-off supers. Now, of course, before we get started, go down there, hit the sub button, because there's a lot of y'all who aren't subbed, and we do daily conversations like this here on the channel. But let's talk about these supers. And I wanted to start off with talking about, first of all, like just a general, like as a player myself and just the general player collective, I think that it's gonna be difficult for Bungie to shift people away from using one-off supers and more towards using roaming supers, right? And the reason why is because people play games to turn their brain off, right? And one-off supers do that wonderfully. Like, why would I use Nova Warp, where I have to actively move around, get kills, run the risk of dying, have to manage health, stuff like that, blah, 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 when I could just chuck a Nova Bomb and call it a day, right? And that Nova Bomb is going to get at least probably 1 kill, but realistically 2 to 3 kills, right? Or I could use a roaming super and I could get 2 to 3 kills as well before I die, right? So there's like this trade-off. And I am well aware that some players can pull off high kill streaks with roaming supers. Like I've done it before, obviously during times when supers were broken, a lot of people pulled it off. But even more recently, I was playing Iron Banner over the weekend, was using Strand Hunter. Used the Strand Hunter to chain together like 6 or 7 kills, right? Not rapid succession by any means, but didn't get a 7 column. But I chained together a bunch of kills, so it is possible to do that, but the circumstances had to be perfect. Not only that, I had a homie that for whatever reason was following me around with Lumina, so you watch my videos, shout outs to the homie that was using the Lumina. Anyways, he was following me around using Lumina and healing me as I was going and killing other guardians and stuff like that. But of course, video games are meant to be fun and they're meant to turn your brain off. And what better way to do that than getting these one-off supers, right? You just throw it and you're done, right? Even Thunder Crash, right? You activate it, you hurl your physical body into somebody, and it is done, right? Not only that, but these supers counter some of the most aggravating supers, right? Like Well of Radiance, like the Bubble. If we didn't have Thunder Crash and Nova Bomb, these would probably be a lot more rampant than they are now, I guess is what I should say, right? And that's not much of a secret. But of course, we need to talk about how Bungie could potentially change the meta, right? Because here's the thing, it gets old running into a room and getting solo Nova Bomb, right? Like that gets old. Like there's no challenge, there's no entertainment in that. And really it's just overused, right? And Bungie's all about changing metas so that things are not overused, right? So what can Bungie do about these, about roaming supers versus not roaming supers? And of course, I think the main thing to remember with the roaming supers is it's high risk, high reward, right? The risk you're taking of activating it, having to run around with it, should lead you to higher rewards, right? And that's where I want to start. I want to start with buffing up roaming supers as opposed to nerfing, our one-off supers, right? So for roaming supers, I think that a reasonable thing to do is, number one, increase the duration, right? This applies for both PvE and PvP. In fact, we have talked about this from a PvE standpoint in the past as well, but in PvE and PvP, increasing the duration, right? Like I want to say, if you don't do any attacks, it lasts for, like most of these supers last for like 30 seconds, right? But let's be real, who's standing there just not attacking, right, in PvP? Okay, yeah, obviously in PvE you could make an argument in a raid for like Sentinel Shield or Banner Shield, blah blah whatever. But in PvP, nobody is standing there just not attacking, right? Like you're going after Guardians, you're attacking. So I think that's not really increasing the duration as much as it is removing the penalty to that super energy drain when you get kills. Now, I think one of the biggest potential issues that you'd have with this is with things like what is it, the Gwissinvest, right, where they can actually extend your super, right? And that would be very, very problematic. Like Trample, you know, we remember old Trample way back in the day, right? If you were there, you remember you could literally chain together 12, 13, 14, 15 kills with one super because it costs almost no energy to dash around the map, get kills, and every time you got a kill, it gave you like 50% of your super back. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous, right? And so we don't want to go back to a situation like that. But again, this is just an idea here. You know, I think Bungie could somehow tweak, you know, these exotics like Gwissinvest, for example. You know, the Gwissinvest, so that it's not as oppressive. You know, that way, you know, you can attack. You don't lose super energy from your attacks, from your backflip, invis attack / your light attacks, blah blah blah, whatever. But I think that's the first thing that Bungie should look into doing. But the second thing, of course, is the cooldowns, right? Like one of the reasons I like using one-off supers is because they have fast cooldowns, right? And this is no secret in Trials of Osiris. Like everybody uses the fastest cooling supers that they can. This is why we see Bubble and Well of Radiance so much in Trials of Osiris, is because those two are very fast they have very fast cooldowns, sorry. They have very fast cooldowns. Not only that, but of course, Trials is a defensive game mode and their defensive supers. That doesn't matter, right? What I think maybe Bungie could look at doing is just giving all supers just a flat out the exact same cooldown, right? In PvP exclusively. Okay, like mind you, in PvP exclusively. Now, this also I don't think would pair well with the other buff that we talked about here, because then roaming supers would feel incredibly oppressive. Like we have to look at that. But I mean, think about it. Like if you're going into a Trials game, right? And whenever I'm thinking about this stuff, I'm frequently thinking about Trials. Like how is it going to play in Trials? How is it going to play in the pinnacle PvP activity, right? And in Trials, I almost don't see it being problematic if everybody just had a flat super cooldown rate, right? Every super cooled down in like, I don't know, what is it, 7 minutes? I think that's the average, right? In 7 minutes, or is it 9 minutes? Whatever, one of those two, right? And as you get kills and deal damage, you get more super energy back, right? So eliminate the whole intellect stat altogether in Trials of Osiris. And I would almost go as far to say, you know, you could eliminate grenade, melee, blah blah, but we're talking supers specifically today, right? But in Trials of Osiris, you eliminate the effect that intellect has. And I know that that's kind of, I've debated that in my head for a while, because it's like, I mean, you're making a part of the game just completely void. Like people have built in that, they've invested their time into building into intellect just to take it away. But at the same time, leveling out that playing field when it comes to supers only, I think that could help, you know, because by the time somebody gets their bubble, you know, because they've been slaying out, somebody on the other team might have their Thunder Crash ready because they've also been slaying out, right? And it would help keep things in balance, right? You know, the bubble, like if you're a Warlock or a Titan, you're using Void, right? And you absolutely shred. I mean, you absolutely slay out the entire game. You get your bubble, you know, by round 3. I mean, great, use it that round, because if you don't use it that round, your enemies may have supers that can counter your bubble the next round, right? And like I think that would also emphasize, like in the Trials playlist, you know, the idea of strategy, because Trials is not all about brute force and who has the best aim and who has, you know, the best blah blah blah. It's who can evaluate situations better. It's much more strategic than something like Sixes. But you know, leveling the playing field for supers, I think, would tremendously help the Trials playlist, and really just PvP in general, right? Now, of course, if you were to do that, you would probably need to buff up like Bubble and Well, right? Because Bubble and Well literally do not stand a chance against any other supers. And that's the reason why they are on a faster cooldown right now. right? Like that's the reason why you can get them quicker, is because Thunder Crash, Nova Bomb, literally any other one-off super, Blade Barrage, anything like that, instantly gets rid of bubbles and wells. Okay, and so I think that, you know, if Bungie were to go that route of just leveling out everybody's super with the exact same charge time, you would need to have some sort of a buff, I guess, to these two supers, right? But moving forward, though, you know, when it comes to supers and roaming supers, of course, we have, you know, we know that Bungie has reduced the amount of orbs that you can make from a one-off super from 7 to 5, and they've increased the orbs that you can make from a roaming super from 5 to 7, which I guess you could say that has potentially shifted the needle a little bit. Actually, no, I really don't think so, right? Because it's not like every single kill you get makes orbs of power, which is wild to me. I think that every single kill you get should make an orb of power, but anyways, regardless of that, maybe something else that Bungie could do is you know, encourage players to not want to use these one-off supers by actually nerfing the one-off supers, right? Something that comes to mind, Thunder Crash. Thunder Crash is an incredibly frustrating super, and I think we can all kind of agree on that, because you can activate it and you can fly around and you can actually like do drive-bys while you're flying around. Like you fly through the air, you hit 3 people, then you smack on the ground and kill 2 more. That is frustrating, especially because it is a one-off super. And yes, I am well aware that, you know, you're putting yourself at risk because you're putting, you know, you have to throw your body into these people. But the amount of players you're going to run into that can actually, like, you know, for example, freeze you out of that super or suspend you, you know, out of that super before you get multiple kills, pretty low, right? So I think with Thunder Crash, like once you go up on the arc, like once you hit a certain point on your arc, you can't go up anymore, right? So you know, you kind of level out, and then you instead of being pulled to the ground incredibly hard, it's kind of more of like a slow drift to the ground till you come to the end of the super. By the time you get to the end of the super, if you haven't hit it yet, then it'll like suck you to the ground and try to almost force you to hit it. And I would almost say like extend its duration by just a tiny bit. Remove the ability to go upwards, right? That way, if somebody using Strand throws a grapple up in the air and they pull themselves above you, you can't hit them, right? Because I was playing in Mayhem, you know, and we're goofing around with Grapple Hunter, you know, and just trying to play tag in the Crucible essentially, and Thunder Crash. In a lot of the instances, we could avoid it just narrowly, but a lot of times, like I could activate, I get way up there, and a Thunder Crash who's done like a full circle can go up, hit, and then drop back down. And I don't know, like I don't know about that. I don't know how well. I don't know if that really should perform that well. But moving on, of course, we have Nova Bomb and Cataclysm. Maybe a nerf that Bungie could do to this is actually potentially nerfing the range, the damage, and the tracking capability of the little void particles that split off from it, right? Like obviously the main Nova Bomb, I really don't have much of an issue with that. If you have a build for it, you can outrun it, you can shoot it down, right? It's like it's not incredibly oppressive, but maybe reducing the tracking on those little void projectiles, because man, those things will follow you forever, right? And they have a lot of health too. Like they're not like an Axiom Bolt where you shoot it one time and they break. Like they have a ton of health. Like I was playing the other day, somebody threw a Nova Bomb at a teammate, it exploded. This one of those balls started tracking off towards me. Full magazine of Rat King did not kill it. It did not pop that little bubble. Oops, I'm so sorry. It didn't pop that little bubble. And I think that that's maybe a little bit excessive, right? Like have it so that, you know, they have more health than an Axiom Bolt, but make it where their tracking is maybe a little bit slower, not quite as oppressive, like, you know, stuff kind of like that. Let's see here, Blade Barrage, that's a one-off super. Now, the truth is, I don't see a whole lot of Blade Barrage in the Crucible anyways, because I think Golden Gun is I would say Golden Gun is the preferred option over Blade Barrage, but Golden Gun is in a whole league of its own. I mean, that thing literally has potentially infinite one-shot kill range, right? And you have less damage resistance, sure, but why do you need DR if you can stand 50 meters away and kill somebody else, right? So I think that Blade Barrage seems like it's fine where it, like kind of where it is, right? But if Bungie wanted to potentially nerf it somehow. I would say reduce the ability to like do the flick where you throw your first handful of knives like forward, and then you can throw your second one like straight behind you 180 degrees. Maybe remove the ability to do that. That way your knives, they're still like, you can still fan them out a little bit, but you can't, you know, throw half your blade barrage at somebody 25 meters over off to the right, and then throw your other half at somebody who's, you know, 12 meters under you to the left, right? Like, I think that maybe that could be something, again, that would reduce the usage of blade barrage. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Let's see here. Gathering Storm. Again, it's so hard. You know, we could sit here and make up all these things, and I've just kind of thought of these on the go here. But again, like, I think the players, the reason they use these one-off supers, is because they're easy and you don't have to put thought into it, right? You just activate it and do it and get it done, right? I think realistically, maybe the last thing that Bungie could potentially do to actually change this is reverse the tiers, right? So like your weaker roaming supers are now the tier 5s, like they have the fastest cooldowns, right? And then your one-off supers that deal massive damage, those are the ones that are moved up to higher tiers inside of PvP. But yeah, I don't know. We're kind of rambling at this point, and video's gone on long enough, but I want to hear your thoughts on one-off supers and how you think Bungie could potentially change them or change the landscape so that they are not like the primary choice that players make, right? Again, I see a majority of players using just one-off supers in the Crucible, and I would like to see that change. I'd like to see a 50-50 split between, you know, 50% of people using one-offs, 50% of people using roaming, and it doesn't feel like we're quite there yet. But yeah, that's it for today. So if you like the content, of course, drop a like, subscribe for more daily Destiny content and conversations such as this one, and do me a favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason YouTube thinks you will like them. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye for now.